again for public access, I think.
Thank you very much, Harold.
And the book is so good. It really is. And I'm looking forward to talking to the ACAP. I really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
And in the audience, welcome very, very much to Conversations, where I'm triply pleased to have as a guest Jerelle Kraus, and she's going to share her own story, and we're also going to let you know about a magnificent book you can see on the stand here. We'll be making reference to it. The title of it is All the Art That's Fit to Print and Some That Wasn't, and it's subtitled Inside the New York Times Op-Ed Page, and that is because she had a long career, as it were, at the New York Times being the art editor, and she has an incredible story to tell, including some illustrations from the book. And Jerelle, welcome so very, very much to Conversation.
Thank you so much, Harold, for the invitation, and I'm extremely honored to be on what I believe is the longest running public access program in all of television history in this country and probably the galaxy.
One that continues, yes, it continues. We got length on our side. Yes, that's true. I thank you for that.
It's a great honor.
And
thank
I'm
you.
really very much impressed with the book, and I'm very happy. I'm going to say at the outset, we'll let them know at the end too, that this is going to air on Monday the 25th of January, and you are going to come and address an organization called the Association of Cable Access Producers this evening. That would be January 25th. And show some of these slides, and one and all are invited to consider coming in, particularly the access producers in the audience. So that said, welcome. I'm glad we can get this on the air.
Thank you so much.
And I've asked you to share with me or go along with me a little bit. You say it's not something you're particularly interested in doing, but if you could just share a little bit. You don't have to go into great depth, but I'd like to just sort of wade into it by sharing where you were born and raised, a little of your education, your little background to sort of to center the program on the personality of yourself. We could share a little of that, and then we'll get into this magnificent book, show a lot of the images, and talk about how it was to be an art editor at the op-ed page of the New York Times, because that's an incredible story to
Thank you,
convey.
Harold. Thank
share
you.
your own background.
Well, I was born in California. I'm a Californian. I was actually conceived in Berkeley, where my father was a professor at the time, and
philosophy, right?
Yes, and it's something actually quite a huge age difference between my parents. But I was born in Napa, and after being conceived in Berkeley, and grew up in Southern California, unfortunately. Left as soon as I could, went to San Francisco, and from San Francisco came to Manhattan.
Big difference between San Francisco and LA, right? Big difference,
yes.
Big cultural divide.
Yes, yes.
How do we account for that, do you think?
Well,
you were there with Mario Savio.
Yeah, well,
and Summer of Love and all that?
I experienced the
as a youngster.
absolute.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was in diapers, of course, but I experienced. I was actually in prison with Mario Savio. And
were you? What an
yes,
honor!
Yeah. One of the 200 people on the Sproul Hall steps, and that's when I first arrived at Berkeley. I went to several colleges. I went to lÉcole de Beaux-Arts in Paris, and Swarthmore College in the East. I got my BA in philosophy, actually, and my master's at Berkeley. What I have done professionally and...
You got the master's in what, dear?
Well, the master's was in art.
Art,
but,
okay,
but not in design or not in anything commercial.
Not art,
it was painting and art, history.
Were
right.
you doing painting and stuff like
yes,
that? You do?
Yes,
Do you
yes.
still do that?
Yes, I have. Well, not recently. I've been doing my second career, which is writing now.
You work in acrylic or oil, figurative,
I've
abstract?
done both, and all of that, all of the above, yes.
Okay. Not sculpture.
I made a large wing that out of an acrylic material that occupies an entire wall of my home, which is definitely a sculpture. I have to make the other wing in order to really fly, but this one is huge. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'd really like to talk about this book because it really gives the reader, yourselves, an inside.
Let me try to bring the book up here, and you talk to it, and I'm going to hold it up and give them a second to come in tight focus. This is the book which you've just recently published, and they'll come in tight focus on this and talk about it.
It takes you inside the New York Times and tells the really compelling story of the op-ed page. It's the only book that does so. And in fact, it's used as a text at NYU and other places because there isn't another book of this kind at all. It's unique. It's published by Columbia University Press. I wanted that journalistic imprimateur. And in fact, I've had many New York Times editors being very graciously praising the book. However, it is also the only book that tells that shows killed work that the New York Times has killed.
Interesting. You have an illustration on the cover that's very interesting in and of itself.
Yes, that's by Horacio Cardo, an Argentine, and it's about balancing left and right political opinions.
And the audience can all see it, but why don't you give the title of the book again?
Oh, it's called All the Art That's Fit to Print and Some That Wasn't. And that parenthetical phrase is because there's about a third of the imagery in the book was never published before. So it's the first time it's being published.
Are we going to see some of those maybe in your
also,
PowerPoint?
That's right.
Okay.
And also, it's the only book that gives an insight into Times policy. It really goes behind the scenes of the New York Times and talks about policies. And despite that, I've, as I said, received very kind reviews from editors at the Times. However, it does, Hal Raines would not give it a good review because it's quite critical of him.
Well, okay, but I wonder, if you think about it in a sense, you think this period of time, I think that that op-ed page with illustration got started about 1970. But if you think in the time period in which we live, I think it's fair to say, if you think of the whole world in a certain sense, the New York Times is not just another newspaper. It is really because you're not thinking just of the Wall Street crowd or the political crowd, but it's probably the major newspaper of record for the period of time in which we're talking, coming up to the end of the 20th century and on into it's a major place. And you were there walking the halls of that major newspaper of world renowned and record, right?
That's right. It's considered the newspaper of record, and it's a very important fact to know that the New York Times still has reporters in Baghdad, in Tehran, in Gaza, in Kabul, in Port-au-Prince, in Haiti now. And in other words, it doesn't have to send reporters where the action, when it begins, because they're already there. And that is a precious and a rare quality, and the New York Times has maintained it despite the financial crisis it's been going through. And as you know, I'm sure it's just been announced that in 2011 they're going to start charging for total online access.
Yeah, a lot of things are happening because of the internet and that. But it's a place that set the tone for the world dialogue in terms, and the op-ed page was perhaps the most important page to be read by trendsetters and so forth, if you take the whole society into account. And you were there, and you were an art editor.
Yes,
there,
well, this is the interesting
and you
thing.
had these illustrations being introduced into it, so that's the context in which maybe some of this should be seen by our audience. A major event, because the illustrations can, an illustration or a picture can convey 1,000 words.
Well, thank you, Harold. You're so true, and it's also very dangerous because the art hits the right brain, the right hemisphere, whereas the text goes directly to the left hemisphere. It's an intellectual, verbal experience, whereas the art is the imagery. It is very frightening to editors, particularly because it goes right to the gut. It's the right brain, which processes, as you know, viscerally, immediately, and even subliminally. And so it is. That's one of the reasons that editors are so wary. And the op-ed page, as you mentioned, began in 1970, but it actually was conceived in 1958. And,
oh, really?
And it's a very interesting story I tell in the book that's never been recorded before.
Yeah, and the writing is really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, right, okay, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Not at all.
the fact is that it was conceived in 1958 by John Oakes, who was a very, very progressive person. He was actually a member of the Oakes family, the nephew of Adolph Oakes, the first publisher. But he was considered kind of the black sheep of the family. He was a Rhodes Scholar, a true intellectual, and the only Oakes or Salzburger who didn't go completely into business. He went into editorial and writing. And in fact, in the 50s, he was writing about very progressive causes, women's feminism and abortion and the environment. And the environment is what he's particularly known for. Now there's an environmental writing prize named the John B. Oakes Prize, because he told the Times that he would like to write about the environment. It's important. So and they said, this is in the 50s.
Yeah, was he editor as well as publisher? And that
he,
sort of
no,
thing?
he
Or
was
how,
not.
how
He
does
was
that
never
work?
publisher. He was never on the business side. He was only on the editorial,
That's
the
pretty
writing
unique,
and
is
editor.
it not?
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It is unique. It's
Yeah.
he's the only. The other members of the family maybe start by doing reporting, but then they go into business. They're all on the board. And
Right.
whereas John was entirely a writer. He was not interested in business at all. And he wanted to report on the environment, and this is in the 50s.
Yeah, that's
and,
early.
And
yeah.
and when and the Times said, "Oh no, it's a absolutely fringe subject. Nobody's interested in it." You know,
And you say he was progressive.
very
Would
progressive.
he have had a position of Mr. McCarthy when he was running rampant and so forth? Joseph.
Oh,
McCarthy?
he was
Or is he too young
extremely
for that?
extremely liberal. No, he's no longer with us. Fortunately, I interviewed him for several afternoons in his East Side townhouse, and so I have the only. This is the only published information about how it truly started in 1958.
Did you tape it? Did you video? Audio
Oh yes,
or
it's
video?
all. It's
video
all.
or audio?
It's that's audio, but it's all taped and it's recorded in my book as well. And what's very interesting is that the term op-ed is actually just like real estate. It's just like the 3 rules of real estate. It's the location of the page opposite the editorial page.
Right.
Now that page had always been where the obits were. Now, as you
Until
know,
1970 or until when?
until 1970.
Really?
And exactly. And that was one of the biggest. That was the big battle.
Up until forgive me, I was reading the New York Times seems forever, but is it true that you had the editorial page and over there you had obituary?
That's right. That was the place, and people
No
looked for
Russell
obituary.
Baker, no.
That's right. Nothing. No columns. Nothing. And so the obituaries, as you know, are the province, are all just the fax man.
Yeah.
So they're the province of the newsroom.
Pre-written, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nobody, it's not opinion, it's fact.
You're right.
So there was a struggle, a turf battle between the newsroom that didn't want to lose an entire page, which is a huge piece of real estate in the New York Times.
I would say maybe the most important page of the whole paper, isn't it?
Well,
Isn't it though?
any page is important. I mean, having control is very important when you're in a position of power, and you want that control. So the newsroom wanted the control. They didn't want to lose that page. However, the editorial floor felt that the newsroom couldn't edit opinion, and this was opinion. So there was a battle, and it lasted 12 years. The op-ed page gestated for 12 years, which is quite a while. Finally, Punch Salzburger, who's the father of the current publisher, decided that it was the province of the editorial floor. So this was the first time in 1970, when I was actually still in California, but the op-ed page began, and it was the first time 3.5 decades before the blogosphere began.
Right. There was no internet yet.
That's right. It was the first time that non-staffers, outsiders, were invited into a public platform. So it was quite significant.
And that began right from the get-go in 1970?
That's right. And
okay.
outsiders.
And that's called editorial journalism, and there's a difference between who won what facts and editorial journalism, is there not? And the editorial journalism is perhaps the most important thing in a certain sense in terms of setting the agenda.
Well, it's
The
opinion.
And have a point of view.
That's right.
For the person who's doing the writing, rather than just the facts, ma'am.
That's right.
Yeah,
And there was an invitation, an open invitation sent out to anyone. Anyone could write. I mean, gorillas, kings, prisoners wrote, mothers against drugs, children taking drugs wrote. I mean, it's been a place where anyone can write, and of course, 2 columnists appear every day, and
that's where everybody turns first.
That's right, and the question in the beginning was, well, how are we going to break up the gray? Because here we're going to put all this text on the page.
That's right.
And how are we going to?
All this hemisphere stuff.
Right. So there was no interest in art. It was just about, how are we going to break it up?
How we're going to design it, maybe.
That's right.
It was the design, and also the editorial. How do they select what they're going to put in that premium location in terms of the vast array of thought that there is existent within the human society, intellectuals to citizens?
And of course, they began before they really knew how to do that.
Okay, well,
so they began publishing, and they would just put things here and there. Sometimes, they wanted to avoid 2 things. They wanted to avoid photos, because really photojournalism cannot illustrate opinion.
They need illustrations.
And right. However, they didn't want the political cartoons, which were the only visual graphic that had ever been in a newspaper. So they were looking for something new, and they really didn't know what to do. So finally, they found a man called Jean-Claude Suarez, who was Egyptian, actually a very worldly person, who was hired as a freelancer just to find art. And for 7 months, he was offering art, but he was turned down. And for
this was to the op-ed page.
Right, he was an art director.
And were you there from 1970?
No, I wasn't there in 1970. But I am the longest. I have the longest run, just like you. I have the longest run as an art director, which is what we call it. There have been, in the 39 years of the op-ed page so far, there have been 30 art directors, and I art directed for 13 years.
Boy, that's a long run. Yeah.
So that's really the reason I chose to do this book, is because I knew that it had to be documented. There had been 9 editors, and I worked with 6 of them.
Well, that must have been a minefield to walk, because that's a huge organization, and there's a lot of different opinions, a lot of big egos, I presume, on all sides of the picture, and a serious thing. That's like being, having a say on the look of the book of the world or something, So it must have been an incredible story where you bring it out in there, the inner workings of a behemoth like the New York Times.
That's right. I worked with 6 of those 9 editors. I'm counting Hal Raines, who was actually an uber editor. He was the editor of the editorial page, and no previous editor of the editorial page had bothered with the op-ed page, and they just let it alone. He was the first one to take the reins.
Help me really quick. 1970, op-ed page was going away from being obituaries to columns and thought. But there were not yet any illustrations of breakup for a long period of time. But now, 1970, is that correct?
Yes.
When did the pictures
they were using things they could find from here and there, so it was broken up with with
crossword
things.
Puzzle or something, or something.
Well, they would borrow Al Hirschfeld from from the theater, from Arts and Leisure, and he'd do a little caricature, and they'd have photographs, something. And then when Suarez came on, here's what he did was he decided that we want to have idea art, imagery that makes a point, that has a statement, that adds, enriches the text, and
breaks it up also too, just as the design of the page.
That's true, but also he had the idea of giving art that adds something and I'll give you an idea of
Okay,
what
good.
this is.
One last thing quick before
Sure.
you switch to that is, when did Kraus come on board there at the New York Times as art editor?
Well, I'll show. I subbed for in 1978 for 2 weeks, and they said they got more mail than they'd ever got. By then, there'd already been about 6 art directors, because Jean-Claude Suarez stayed only for about 18 months, a year and a half.
And when did the illustrations begin to appear on the op-ed page? Was it from the get-go, or was there a period from 1970 when it was just print?
No, there was never just print, but
Oh.
but until Suarez really got going,
Right.
and then the real sense of op art began. And in fact, it leaned more towards fine art, with like the idea of Dada and surrealism, and he borrowed from Europeans, and it really conceived a new kind of art that had never been seen before, and certainly not in a newspaper.
How did you happen to come aboard?
And as I said, it was shown in the Louvre in 1974.
Yeah, right,
so it was really,
well, like the punch and things they have out of the past. How did you happen to come aboard, if I could? And then we get into the illustration. We're going to show a lot of the illustrations.
Sure. Well, in 1978, as I said, I subbed for an art director for 2 weeks, and then I went back to the section I was doing, which was a weekly section.
You were in the New York Times?
I was already there.
You were with New York Times. When did you first join New York Times?
1976.
76, right, okay.
And, but I was doing the weekly section. I was quite happy doing weekly, and I didn't want to do a daily section, which is very, very demanding. It's by far the most demanding job. And however, I was asked thrice by the op-ed editor to become art director in 1979.
You must have demonstrated some talent along those lines to somebody.
I said no twice.
Well with are you one who gets along
no,
well with
I know. In fact, I was fired by one editor.
I was going to
and
say.
That's why I said 13 years. It was 10 years. And then I was fired because I was too obstreperous, and I was
obstreperous is an operative word. I see. Yeah,
I was
There's probably a lot of that within the New York Times. I would think you have a lot of big egos, do you not?
Yes, but there are not too many people who. That's right. I sort of am known for that.
And you had a wide circle of friends in terms of the body politic or the social
well,
society.
I am left of the New York Times, and I made my opinions known, and I was very strong about the art. I also wrote, and have written for the New York Times and the New Yorker.
Oh, New Yorker's great. Yeah.
Thank you. And however, I really was there to defend and promote the art. So I simply, even though I read all the articles and I cared very much about what the editors were doing and about the news. In fact, for me, it was very exciting to be involved in the news every day.
Absolutely.
And
ground zero.
Like you, I dealt with every subject in the world. And I've been watching your program, and I see you deal with everything. And that is a thrilling experience. And to do that as well as to have the experience of dealing with the artist very intimately.
I think it's worthwhile to have a wide canvas so you can draw upon patterns between things rather than specialize in one particular thing, which is more a left hemisphere thing, I think. Tunnel vision and specialization is not the same as, or a painting. Surreal? Was it
Surrealism.
So not surreal so much as dot painting. That you get back, you see the pattern.
Oh, you mean like Seurat?
Yeah, Seurat. Yeah, right. And
pointillism.
And what it is really is being comprehensively interested in a lot of different things and see pattern recognition. The human mind is very good at pattern recognizing, and so are the computer developments that are coming along now. They're beginning to mimic us, and so okay, that's all very good. It's just that your trouble is, Jerelle, you're too interesting. And we only have an hour, and we got a lot of things to do.
Well, I'll show you a few.
You have some illustrations. You also have some press from around the world about the book, and we want to let people know about it also.
Well, we'll see what we
How
can do.
do you want to proceed from here?
Well, here's a picture that Suarez did himself, and this is what he did was to take an old engraving and just put it in an old Remington typewriter and do some gibberish on it, and that's how
Okay.
you get. And this is the idea of words being stronger than than weapons.
Okay.
Words as weapons.
So we're going to be able
And
to show that on the screen.
Yeah,
then.
yeah. I
Okay.
think you just saw it.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, you
I
didn't
haven't
see it?
seen it. Could they bring it
there,
up? Maybe
there,
they could
there it
bring up.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's on your
Okay.
computer, but it's not on the screen. Are you going to, in the booth, be able to bring it up? The picture that she has from the computer. Hope you could do. Maybe you should keep talking until they get that.
Well, that's
done.
really quite important
Yeah,
because
it is important. Somebody go try and get them so they could bring that picture up. And so what you got to, maybe you could talk about what you've got. You've got a lineup of a number of the images from the book. that you got
yes,
from your
yes. Well, and the second one that I'm going to show you is
Better
this.
keep it on the first, because it's not appeared
Yes,
yet.
no,
yeah.
I will go back.
Uh-huh.
But the interesting thing is a story that was written by General William Westmoreland, who handled the Vietnam War, and
Yeah.
he wrote a real defense of how the U.S. should have won that war. And the article went on and on about how great we are and how
Yeah.
it should have been won, and yet the artist, who is a German by the name of Matthias Prechtel,
That's a mouthful. Yeah.
well, it's Michael Matthias
Oh,
Prechtel.
even more, yes.
Yeah. And what he did was to portray the North Vietnamese victor, Premier Van Dong, who was not mentioned in Westmoreland's article. So you see, it added something.
Yes,
it added
right,
something
right.
to the page.
Now, have we got any word about the ability to bring up on the screen the images from the computer that we worked out ahead of time? And apparently not. They're still working on it. So why don't you hand me some of these things that you've got? We'll hold those up now.
Okay.
And we'll get to that. They'll try and work that out so we can show
Here's a
Now, why don't you give it to me? And
yeah.
I'll hold
Here
it up.
this is a happens to be a double spread from
Yeah, I got it.
Copenhagen
Got it.
a magazine in
Now,
Danish.
Now I'm going to hold this up, and you can come in, and I'm hidden behind it, so you can talk to it, okay? And when
Well,
they come in, close focus on
I
it.
just brought this simply because it's a double spread of a broadsheet newspaper in Copenhagen, and it's all in Danish. It was
This
the
is from
front
Danish.
page of the Kultur, which you can see.
And this is a homage to your book, right?
This is a review of the book.
A review,
yes,
yeah,
and
wonderful.
it's been interviewed thanks to the internet and the global reach we now have. It's been reviewed in Moscow and Madrid and Montreal and all over the world.
I would think so. It certainly deserves to be. It's a magnificent piece of work. the book.
And the artists are from 131 countries. There are 320 illustrations and 60,000 words. Here is a
Okay, let me
single.
take that, fold that down
Yeah,
now.
here
You
is
take that.
here
And then
has
they
happened
can
to
be
be
working on getting that
a
computer
single
working.
page.
Okay, here. Okay, now this gives you an idea of the way that op-ed art works because
Yeah,
you've got.
This was interesting because it was about how garbage should go into the sea rather than to be placed in landfills and that sort of thing. Of course, the sea is getting very dirty too. But David Souter did this, and it's obviously anthropomorphized, but the image of garbage is made into a figure, and that was one way that metaphors were created. And to do that layout was quite tricky because
Yeah, look, yeah, right. The way that you lay it out, that's an art form itself. Yeah, right.
yeah.
And when is this from? Do we have a picture? Do we have the copy of the very first op-ed page that was done in 1970?
No, we don't, but I can tell you that it had a photograph of China, Beijing, and it had a small drawing by Al Hirschfeld
I don't
of
mean the
Spiro
Hirschfeld.
Agnew.
Yeah, it's in the archive, but it's not in the book. The first page.
That's right. I mentioned it in the book.
Okay,
yeah,
very
but
good.
it's not there's not much.
With all due respect, I think the moving toward the illustrations or in the op-ed page in 1970 is a major event. And I also think 1970 was a time of qualitative transformation in the human condition and the whole evolution of events. So I think that's something would be good to get. But here, thank you for that. 1970 was the year that
That's
transformation
right.
took place.
Here's
And
a
we have
picture
another one.
until we get the
Yeah,
projector
right.
up. This
Okay.
one is done by a
Goes like
Polish
this, right?
artist, yes. And the Poles were very valuable. The Eastern Europeans were very valuable because they were steeped in the pattern of showing metaphors and doing anti-Soviet pieces by hiding the message in a metaphor. Like this obviously comes from Swift Gulliver's Travels.
Right.
And Jan Kowalski was the name we used for Andrei Dushinsky because he came over in 1981, very early, right at the beginning of Solidarity.
Yeah.
And this is a piece from that era. And he didn't want to use his real name, Dushinsky, because he knew that he wouldn't be able to go back to Poland to visit his family.
Right.
And so we chose the most common Polish name, which was Jan Kowalski, and that's the name that we used. However, his mother died while he was here during this period, and he of course wanted to go back to be with his family and go to the funeral, but he went to to get his visa, and at the Polish embassy here, which of course is Soviet controlled, Jaruzelski was the premier in Poland, and they had under Dushinsky, under his real name,
take this down now, then, okay?
they had all the Jan Kowalski drawings, so they weren't full. They weren't fooled. The Soviets weren't fooled. Is the projector on now?
Well, let's see if we can. Maybe we can. Maybe they came in and made an adjustment. So if they just bring a picture up, the first one, do you have it on the first one? Because she has a PowerPoint projection with a number of the
Yeah, there's the first one.
And here it's on the computer.
Is it on now?
And then there's another connection. They're just making a connection here. And let's see if maybe they can get it to work.
Yeah,
because
well, I'll talk about that.
Here's
the next one. Here's the next one. This is done by Jean-Michel Follon, who's a Belgian artist. And the most difficult thing the most difficult thing to depict visually. That's right.
Okay,
that's
good.
right.
And
the
that's
most difficult thing to show is
Thank you very much.
emptiness, void.
Yeah.
And this story was about a widower who had just lost his wife. So this is quite a poignant piece. And the Westmoreland, oh no, that's not it, sorry. This is the Westmoreland. That's the Premier Van Dong, who was the real victor, and Westmoreland didn't mention. Here's the Suarez piece I mentioned, and we'll go ahead. Okay. And here's Idi Amin.
Oh, wow.
And of all, right. And now, Idi Amin, as of course you know, macheted people with his own hands.
Awful.
I mean, he was, right.
Yeah.
And yet the Times considered this too strong.
Wow.
And there's not even any blood. But
we
couldn't show.
blood.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean,
right.
I think it's rather benign considering who is being depicted. But
well, that's something that
this
has
was
to
killed.
That has to be carefully considered when you're thinking of an image more than the words. The words don't drip blood, but the image does. Well, and it's really an artistic thing. It's important because that's the way the mind takes information in.
You're absolutely right, Harold. That you can say anything.
Yeah.
You would talk about blood and guts and violence and torture, but you cannot show it.
And yet the world is galloping toward not only multimedia. I mean, it is now with the internet, and the whole thing is morphing to cell phone.
That's right.
I mean, so multimedia is interjecting, so there's much more room for the right hemisphere or multimedia images that more get close to those that we have as we walk through the world, the reality,
But editors are frightened of them. Here's the page that I think is the reason that they wanted me to go to the op-ed page, because this was a piece done by David Suter, and he did the whole image. This is at J. Edgar Hoover, and as you can see, his face is made out of spies. And because I had an ad on the page, I didn't have room for his body, but so I put his feet at the bottom, and the leg of type kind of subsumes his whole body.
And you did that design.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think
there's
that
an art in that. Yeah, sure is. Yeah.
Well, of course, I always work with the artists on the art to get it right before I show the editors, because I want to show them something that they'll approve, which doesn't always happen.
You have to walk a careful line there in terms of what they will and will not. And we're going to get to the criteria by which so many were not allowed. What was the reason?
That's right.
You know,
This
important.
is so. I finally said yes because I was convinced that I would enjoy it, and well, I did end up really loving it. I was also promised a raise to go to, switch to the
Bribe?
op-ed page.
Was it a bribe?
But well,
did they have to bribe
it
you,
was
or?
it was promised to me, but it wasn't given to me because I forgot about it.
Oh.
I was so excited doing the page.
You were probably so all wrapped up in the
right,
work. Yeah,
right,
Okay.
and
typical
so
artist.
and by the time I asked for it, the editor who had promised it to me was no longer alive, and so the Times said, "Well, that editor promised it to you, not the Times."
Oh, that's
but
interesting.
here was the first image that I used when I actually started in 1979. This is by Franek Starowiecki, a really fine, the first Polish artist to do Polish posters, which is a real genre in itself. This was about the nuclear, the whole nuclear fear. And as you can see, now here is this my first fiasco. Yeah. Now this.
Yeah, I read about this. It's funny. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you can
That's
see.
Mr.
I mean,
Kissinger,
here was a very scathing article written by William Safire about the war criminal, who's right over there on the east side, living very much alive right now. Unfortunately. Well, I shouldn't say that. that's uncruel. I did.
No, well, that's the way a number of Christopher Hitchens and others.
Well, actually, I have to tell you that
the Vietnam War was searing. It just tore this country apart, and it was a mistake.
And Cambodia.
It was a mistake.
It was a complete mistake.
4 million people maybe died with our bombs dropping on little children.
Right.
And it does get people upset and tore this country apart
That's
for a
right.
mistake
That's
in
right.
strategy. Which is something that, a lot of people were upset with that, tore the country. It was part of what was tearing the country apart around 1970.
There we go. It was
We
a
should
very
remember it
powerful
well.
time, very powerful time. And I was protesting the Vietnam War
As
in
was
San
practically
Francisco.
everybody
Right.
toward the end.
And Nixon's policies, Kissinger's policies. And in fact, Sid Sheinberg once took me to lunch at Sardi's and told me, he was of course in Cambodia, and the film, The Killing Fields, was based on his work in Cambodia. And what he told me at Sardi's is that, I don't believe in capital punishment, but I'd go anywhere to see Kissinger hanged.
I think there was a lot of people felt that way, and there was opposition that was just intense. And there were other things going on at that time as well.
That's
right.
right.
When you had Woodstock.
That's right.
And there was something blowing in the wind, Bobby Dylan said, and there was. And I think it'll be good when the intellectuals finally get around to ferreting out or understanding exactly what was going on at that particular time, other than the Vietnam War, which was a mistake and signaled a new geopolitical need for some kind of a qualitative transformation that they've still not come up with the means of understanding and taking into account in terms of the structure of international and world national society and the understanding intellectually of the evolution of consciousness. There was a major transformation. The intellectual community has still not presented a pattern that is what the future requires in terms of the operation of this interrelated spaceship Earth. It'll be good when they catch up with that rather than just reifying outdated institutions out of an outdated past.
That's right. That was
1970 was
a
a major
very,
year.
very.
They should start focusing on that. It wasn't just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There was something major
Well,
going
there was
on
black liberation.
evolutionarily.
Black liberation, and there was feminism. A lot was going on. In this piece, you can see that there is, that RN for Richard Nixon is on one arm, Mother is on the other. I offered.
Do we still have the image of the Shaw, or can we get back to it, or what? Or not the Shaw, but I meant Mr. Kissinger with Shaw on his backside.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
they had just overthrown most of the
Oh, there he is, yeah.
Yeah,
now,
they'd overthrown most of
that's
that.
that's right. And very few people know about that. The CIA did that. Yeah.
That's major.
That,
That's a
he was
major thing that should be
in
understood.
Iran.
in Iran. That was a major CIA operation.
And he was democratically elected. That's right.
That was worse than Allende's.
And in Iran, that's so well known. But Kissinger is the one who offed Allende and horribly with doing propaganda, horrible propaganda and economic campaigns.
All in the name of realpolitik.
There we go.
And they still haven't got up to what the future requires in terms of how the society of the world is going to be organized. They don't have it yet. Did you see that announcement of Mr. Roberts in the Supreme Court yesterday about the way things are going to be changed?
Horrible.
Unlimited amount of
Horrible.
corporate advertising that's
Horrible.
going to come down. They still don't. The liberals or the progressives do not have an
But
alternative.
that's a Bush Supreme Court.
No, but it's not Bush, but it's not. The intellectuals do not yet have presented to the world leadership how and why things should be changed in a major paradigm shift that was signaled in 1970.
Yes, perhaps
the same year that the op-ed thing was starting, it was blowing in the wind. Bobby Dilling was singing about it. They just got down to where they said it's just irresponsibility and everything like that. And the intellectuals, including the progressives, do not have an alternative that the future requires for the whole planet. And I wish they would get on with it.
Yeah, it's very interesting how
with
people like the GOP has very simpler ideas, and they frame them well. And things like friendly fire, which is a real euphemism. And but Sarah Palin and Scott Brown, who is just these glamorous people, they do quite well with very little, and all the intellect on the left.
That's where that's where all the intellect is, and they're not. The progressives do not have an alternative. They have not put together yet an alternative. It's the fault of the progressives for not coming up with something that can really seriously challenge the established order, which is out of sync with what the future requires, because they're blinkered by some sort of thinking coming out of history. They only let Galileo off the hook of the Catholic Church about 12 years ago for saying we weren't the center of the universe. We're all mired in historical notions. Outdated economic theory. We don't have a system economic theory to inform the political process. A major qualitative transformation is needed, and it seems to me art like you put forward could help bring that into the consciousness of greater numbers of people and maybe get us over the finish line before we blow up the whole damn world.
Well, wouldn't that be terrific? Well, this Kissinger piece was killed.
Too much buttocks.
Well, it wasn't that. In fact, I offered to crop it mid-dragon, but I was told that was not the problem. I was told it was too excessive flesh, which I don't think that was the reason at all. But let's go. This is I used a lot. Now this is my work now, or when I was art director. This is Romare Bearden, who's a very, very well-known African American artist who had a recent retrospective in the Whitney, although he just died. But this was a Ugandan farmer. He gave me this image. It was very generous of him. This is Larry Rivers, who's a very big and was a close friend, and he did 9 op-ed pieces for me for $250 each, and his work sells for millions. But he loved doing them. Now this was. Do you remember that weird thing where Reagan invaded Grenada? This big deal, this big victory.
The mouse that roared or something. It's like a satiric movie, absurd movie. Yeah.
Well, here Larry did this piece, and he modeled
Bishop, somebody named Bishop was there.
Right. That's right. In Grenada. No, that's fine. He modeled this. Larry did after Washington crossing the Delaware, the famous painting. But this he called Reagan crossing the Caribbean. And now this is interesting. Here's another big name. This is Andy Warhol. And when
you knew Andy, huh?
Well, a little bit. But I asked him. This is just 1979 when I just started, and that's why I made this mistake. I didn't realize what couldn't be published. I didn't realize how conservative the Times was. But this is a different issue. This was a piece on Ted Kennedy when he was running for president in 1980, and it was written by a pollster who said that people don't really know what what he's like, what he really represents, and this is 1980, of course, and so I asked Andy to do a shadowy, kind of vague, ambiguous image, and I sent him 3 photographs, which he asked for. And what he did was he just projected them and did the outlines of them in a huge, gorgeous pencil drawings on very, very large pieces of paper, thick paper. But my editor felt that they didn't say anything, and of course I said, "Oh, can't we just publish the signature?" You know, so they were killed, and at the last minute they left me on a Friday night, because this was to run on a Sunday.
Wow.
And they left me to do it myself, and I just started thinking ink blot, and so I did a Rorschach image that I actually, the biggest controversy about this.
With the Kennedy thing?
Yes, it's just just to give the idea that.
So you created this.
Right, I drew it, and this is just to give the idea that people are just looking into their own, they're projecting their own ideas, but the biggest problem is I signed it Jerelle Rorschach, and the next the next morning I was screamed at, because again this is 1979. I was screamed at because you cannot use pseudonyms in the New York Times. I didn't know that. And now when Nixon was big in the 70s, and here's a Seymour Klaus showing.
Were you contrite when you were screamed at? Or?
I was shocked.
How do you handle
I was
that?
silent.
Do you use a sense of humor help?
Well, in the beginning, I was just shocked.
You see it like a movie, like a Mel Brooks movie scene or something? Or how do you handle that kind of stuff? You must have run into a lot of that.
I actually
overblown egos.
Yes, and I began to talk back, which was the problem. That was the problem. Yeah. Really, what you have to do is.
Yeah, but you were there 13 years.
30 years.
30
30
years,
at the time. 13 at the op-ed page, which is a complete record, more than twice as long as any editor
and I bet you
has
were
stayed.
loved, right? You were loved on all sides.
Well,
was there anybody there who
I
really
worked with.
seriously upset with you, or there's a lot of bean counting.
2 people fired me,
and
the second one was Hal Raines, who is kind of the villain of the book. Although I just got yesterday a very nice letter from an editor who said that he loved the book, that he's sure that Hal Raines would be ordering dozens of them. But here's
you have great reviews from what's his name? Bill Maher.
Maher, yeah.
Maher has written a great thing, and all kinds of other people. Great reviews.
Thank you.
It's well deserved. Just out, everyone should get it. But go ahead, more.
Thank you. Well,
we got about 10 minutes left.
Oh,
okay?
is that all? Oh my goodness.
That's all I know. It goes fast when you're
well,
having fun.
Here's when I did a drawing of Nixon and Brezhnev together, and believe it or not, I got a call in my office, and it was Nixon on the phone. To my shock, Ray Price, his press secretary, but he wanted the original of my drawing. And I said, well, you know, this is a rare opportunity. So I decided, okay, I'll bring it to you. And I did, and I spent almost 3 hours in his office.
Do me a favor, describe it. Okay?
Well, it was very strange.
Federal Plaza downtown.
26 Federal Plaza, yeah.
You got a call.
He
it was
like
out, something out of a movie.
That's right, and he was out of office, of course, and. But the Secret Service came in to take this picture. And
you got the picture.
Yeah,
oh, good. Yeah.
And as you can see, he has checkers turned out towards the.
Rather than looking at checkers.
You know, you usually.
Always the outer projection.
Yeah,
of the image,
you usually look at
That's
your family photos,
you
know. But here he's still using checkers as a
but
public.
I happen to have read it, and you got a call, and it says, come to address, knock 3 times, and then it was like something out of a Mel Brooks movie.
Yeah, actually, several reviewers have said this story is worth the price of the book.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I had.
Is that what actually happened, right?
Yes, I was told. I was given an address, and
you were going to present the original to him.
Yes, he wanted the original, and I actually on the phone I said, "Well, what are you offering me? Originals are valuable."
Right.
And he said, well, I'd like to give you an autographed copy of the memoirs. And I said, actually, Brezhnev made me a much better offer.
You did.
But I did, but he didn't laugh. He has no sense of humor. And I went, but I was told, to go to the end of the long hall and then knock 3 times and then wait, pause, and knock once more. And, you know, it was like I was entering a cabal.
Yes,
it was
right.
You know, it was very, very
And Ray
bizarre.
Price was there?
You know,
Ray
well,
Price was there?
yeah, we were, the two of us were alone, and it was quite an experience. He actually broke down at one point and got human,
Wow.
but because I mentioned China, but yeah, it was a vast office, and Ray Price was in the corner. His alter ego was in the very corner of this, but it was like we were alone, and the Secret Service came in to take this picture at the end, you know. But here's
they showed that picture, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I guess this isn't being shown. This is Mother Russia.
Yeah,
maybe,
could you come back to the
maybe
image?
Not,
or
maybe not.
Is it stopped again or what? I don't understand. Hello, well,
okay.
hello,
There we go. Well,
Mother
this is,
Russia?
yeah,
Okay.
and this is a collage. And the funny thing about this is Mother Russia pointing her missiles at you know, everyone.
Wow.
And it was done, actually collaged pieces of maps. And but I got a call the day it ran from Rand McNally, the map company, saying, from the lawyer, saying that we are going to sue the Times because you can, not only that, you people could use your drawing instead of buying our map. And I said, well, he backed down, however, when I pointed out the proximity of Siberia to Los Angeles.
That is a little problem in terms of cartographic, cartography, ethics of cartography. Yeah.
Another, missiles were a constant theme. Here's one by Edie
That's a
Vonnegut.
metaphor for the truth. You know,
Yeah, this is by Edie Vonnegut. Another, I thought this was quite a moving way of representing missiles, which we had to do all the time. Oh, this is an interesting piece because this was just a little letters drawing, and it was about a blizzard that occurred in 1888.
That's a biggie. Blizzard of '88. Yeah.
Right, but it followed a very warm winter actually, so it was quite an anomaly.
A year after, you mean? Oh no, it's
shortly,
the same year.
Yeah,
okay,
shortly,
okay,
1888.
Yeah.
And so this is a thermometer that calibrates very carefully the you know, the mercury going up, and it rises to almost 90 degrees, and yet the snow is falling. And so this was a wonderful, perfect, you know, way of showing it, and it was just 2 inches square, and it was okayed by everyone. At the last minute, I got a call and saying that this image was pulled from the page. I thought, my goodness,
why?
Because Hal Raines said, it looks like an ejaculation.
Oh my God. Oh, well, bring it back. Can you bring it back? Take it back. Oh, like an erection or something, or an ejaculation.
An ejaculation with the snow and the
you got
ice.
problems with what's going on inside
Well,
people's minds.
the phalli.
When you put it out to the public, for instance. Wait a minute. When you put it out to the public, you've got all kinds of prejudicial things going on in people's minds that see things that only they see, and so they get all kinds of complaints based upon idiosyncratic or idiopathic kinds of reading of things, don't we? You know what I mean? You got to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Right, and but the thing is that why should we be so afraid of these? Now, for instance, you know, what's wrong with getting letters? There doesn't seem to be any problem about getting letters about the texts, but getting letters about the art, that is a problem for editors.
McLuhan or James Joyce and start reading about the linear projection. You know, the left hemisphere linear is logical, it's that. And all of the printing press was the most important invention, and that's right, that's linear thinking. It's linear thinking, and it's logic, and it's there, and there's a commitment to these kind of things coming out of the media by which we've been able to communicate. And it's a whole question of, and that's thought of as legitimate if it's down in print. Print is legitimate, and the other stuff is fluffy.
Well, and yet here's an example. This is a text about how.
Or it's linear thinking. It's also rational. It's associated with rational. All kinds of things that go into the way of thinking about consciousness I'm sorry. I mean, it's just McLuhan used to write beautifully on it. Yeah. But,
yeah, there was something irrational going on in the minds of editors, I felt, when this very beautiful image of China, which is depicted both as the Great Wall and a dragon at the same time by David Souter, and it's encompassing Taiwan. Again, it was a piece about the whole problem of Taiwan and China, but it was killed. It never ran. This gorgeous drawing
This is another
because
one that
it
didn't
was
run.
supposed.
You're showing some that didn't
Yeah,
run
this one never ran. It's published in this book for the first time because it was
Okay.
considered to be too fierce.
Let me give you the 3-minute warning. We're out of time in 3 minutes, so if there's some things you want to get to within 3 minutes, maybe you want to jump to it
there's
or
so many
something.
more. But
I know, that's the problem, isn't it?
I'll just show you this
Okay.
wonderful image by Ronald Searle. He'll be 90 on March 3rd of this
God
year.
bless
He's in
him,
the
yeah.
south of France, and he's the greatest graphic artist alive. And here, for Valentine's Day, it was to be freestanding, but it was killed. It's a female feline walking down a tightrope, passing all these perfectly appropriate cats of her own species, proffering these bouquets in favor of this fish-carrying rat. Now, why would this be? I mean, it's humorous. I mean, why would this be killed?
Did they give a rationale for it?
Oh, yes. There was a very good rationale. It was politically incorrect. It implies that ladies love outlaws.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
Well.
Yeah, that's really funny. That was the rationale. All right. Oh, God, isn't that funny?
I have so many more to show you.
Is there anything else to show? We got
Well,
a
there
little time. We
are
got about a
tons.
couple minutes.
Oh, here's one I drew.
Okay,
I
do.
drew.
Yeah, by all
This
means.
is
There's Mr. Marx,
Karl
yeah.
Marx had an illegitimate son with the maid. Very few people, even very few Marxists, knew about this, known about this, and still don't. But the kid was never. Somebody had to take credit because the maid was a live-in maid. So Engels took the rap, just like Engels finished the last volume of Das Kapital,
Okay,
you know, and
yeah,
we should all have an Engels. But the kid was farmed out to a working-class London family. So he was named Freddie Engels. He grew up as a Marxist, really, and a factory worker, and he died at 78. He never knew his true paternity, and rarely. He saw his mother a couple times going through the back door, but we only know about this because after Marx died, when Engels was on his deathbed, he told this fact to the two Marx daughters, who both became suicides. And this drawing was considered it was called vulgar and tasteless by my boss, and but it ended up winning a big award.
Well, congratulations on the
Thank
award. And my daddy used to say, there's no accounting for taste because it's so variegated. Listen, it's a pleasure. You can see they're reading the graphics, so that means we're coming close to the very, very end of the program. Thanks enormously for such a very well-led life, and congratulations enormously on the book. Thank you very much. You're coming this evening, the day of this programming, to talk to our ACAP. I appreciate that. And the book is recommended to one and all. It's a major book, and of course it's Jerelle Kraus, and it's called All the Art That's Fit to Print and Some That Wasn't, which you've seen here and would see in the book if you get it. Thanks a whole lot.
Inside the New